how you can improve your art from this to this with just one simple change. When I looked at artists I like on other platforms, I always liked their semi-realistic painting style, but I never knew how to replicate it. But after learning these tricks, I have changed the way I looked at art and how I draw entirely. And my art has improved so much that I also want to share what I learned with you guys as well. So before I learned this, I've always had a hard time with coloring and rendering my artworks. However, one day while scrolling through my feed, I found a short that changed how I looked at art and the way I approached my painting process entirely.
I made this custom brush to prove that color does not matter as much as you think it does. Every painting starts with a good drawing. It's just the basis of everything that we do. Now that we have a strong foundation built up, we can start to think about value. Value is how light or dark something is, independent of its color. Now, even though I feel like I'm on acid, we actually have kind of form reading in here. We have a nose starting to pop out of the mist. People come to me asking for critique all the time, asking for help with their colors, but almost every single time it's issues with the values of their drawing, or just the proportion, the even more basic elements of their drawing before they even get into rendering.
What? I was so dumbfounded and I was so intrigued that I also looked at his other videos. And that's when I realized that is what we are missing when we create art with muddy, messy shadows and these incoherent mess. Values. After I watched the video, I found the topic of values very interesting. And so the next time I started a project, I focused all my attention not on the anatomy, not the accuracy of the folds, not the perspective, but the values and how close they match the reference. Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that the other fundamentals are not important. It's just that when we try to render artwork with similar art styles to these, which are semi-realistic or realistic colors, we should focus on values in particular. When rendering, I mainly just use 3 layers because I'm still an amateur, and these are the bare bones that you need for rendering. The base color, which should be light and shouldn't be too high on the saturation because it'll be added through the multiply layer that acts as the shadow layer for you to shade it in, and then a color dodge for special highlights or special lightings that you want to add. To put it simply, to break down the art's value, you would want to determine a light source and think about how it will affect the subject and its planes. Things that are facing away from the source will be darker in value, and that's what we are looking for, how dark or bright something is in the art and the reference. First, I tried experimenting with black and blue shadows, because the contrast and the saturation of them are easier to handle and grasp. Then, after that turned out pretty good, I started using references with different shadow colors and saturation. For shadows with different colors, on the multiply layer, try to guess the color of the shadows. Here, I think it might be red or orange shadows, so I added oranges of different darkness to shade it. This is why skin looks so much better when shaded with orange or red rather than gray or black. And if you ever run into a problem that you feel like something is off between your art and the reference, try squinting your eyes and see if you can spot the difference in the values between the two pictures. And just an advice, it is super important that you think of your drawing as a whole and don't get stuck on the small details. Because like he said,
truth in art is obtained like gold, not by letting it grow bigger, but by washing it of everything that is not gold. So what do we do when we paint a portrait? We wash away all the things that we normally care about.
You don't have to add that much details for us to figure it out. We can recognize objects with only its values very easily. After many attempts of rendering, with the focus of value in mind, my art quickly improved into something I'd actually say looks good. Even though I mostly copied the reference one-on-one, this taught me a lot about how to use the shadows, contrast, and highlights. In summary, if your art looks weird, muddy, or you don't know what's wrong with the lighting, try turning it into black and white, and check its values and see if you can spot something wrong with it. After that, you determine a light source and the subject's surfaces, then thinking about which part to shade and by how much becomes much easier. And of course, be patient about coloring and rendering. I speak for everyone when I say it's the hardest part of making an art piece. It takes way longer than sketching, line art and planning combined. These drawings took me around 3 hours, while some artists spend over 4 or 5 hours on the coloring alone. So yeah, I hope my advice helps. I still have a lot more to learn, so if you guys have any advice, feel free to correct any of my mistakes or give me additional tips as well. For more art videos from this fish that likes art, subscribe to the channel. You'll become one of the fish in our aquarium. If you'd like to see me surviving art challenges and dares, watch this video here.